Good morning, San Francisco. Welcome to Free Talk SF, freetalksf.com. I am your host, Steven Zeiler. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2015, and you are joining me here in beautiful Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco, California, where we're talking about freedom, empathy, and independence for all people, all beings in San Francisco. Our goal is to make San Francisco the freest place in the galaxy. And today it is a super sunny day, and I needed to get some rays, so I decided to be a little bit more free. Well, good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is cannabis. I've been reading a little bit more about the cannabis laws in San Francisco and in California, and how is it that we are relatively free here regarding cannabis, which of course is a magical plant that makes a lot of people's lives a lot better, and what we can do to make people more free regarding cannabis here in San Francisco. So, as you all know, in America, the Washington, D.C., the people who call themselves the government, they have banned, according to their rules, the cannabis plant. No one is allowed to buy it, consume it, grow it, sell it. It is illegal. And they even say that it's not it has no medical benefit. However, the state of California, or at least the people that call themselves the state of California, they have decreed that all California residents, if they have a serious medical condition that a physician prescribes cannabis for, then they're allowed to use it. But interestingly enough, the state of California, or the people that call themselves that, they don't specify how anyone is supposed to get the cannabis. They just say, if you have a prescription, then you are allowed to consume the cannabis. And that means that it's up to the local governments or the local people to determine how they enforce that rule, and how they allow people or disallow people from using and selling cannabis. Which is awesome. It's just in line with the strategy of local independence for San Francisco itself. I'm in it for independence in San Francisco, freedom for San Franciscans. And though I love other people around the world, I love the rest of America, but we really want to focus on San Francisco, freedom, independence, and empathy here. And it's awesome that we have the opportunity to shape the way that cannabis is handled here in the city, because of the way that the people that call themselves the state of California have delegated to the city. So upon further research, there are I think a few dozen medical cannabis dispensaries, or let's just call them cannabis stores, that are regulated by the San Francisco Department of Public Health. Now, according to some research, the cannabis stores are not they are not regulated by the San Francisco police, but it's not a police regulation. It's actually a city ordinance that you have to have a license to be a medical cannabis, or to be a cannabis store, a cannabis dealer. And so there's the short amount of licenses, and if you have a prescription, you can go get those. However, if you are in San Francisco or you're anywhere else where they offer the prescription cannabis model, where you can go to a physician, either make something up, or if you have a real condition, one, you don't need a license or a prescription to use a plant. You are a free human, and you can go ahead and use the plant as you want, as long as you can get it. And I'll tell you, it's not hard to find cannabis plants for sale here in San Francisco, especially right here at Haight and Ashbury. There's people standing on the street all the time. But it's important to not get the prescription for the medical cannabis. It's extremely important that you don't do that, because once you do get a prescription for cannabis because of some type of stress or psychological issue, whatever it is that they normally, like sleep issues, whatever it is that they use to prescribe cannabis, that actually, from a state physician, puts you in a new class of people who, because of your medical condition, have access to less rights. And historically, people who call themselves the government have been able to successfully restrict various rights based on medical conditions. And you've all seen the probably movies or horror stories of people who are not insane, but they get put in an insane asylum and that they lose their freedom completely. Here, I think it's much more likely that you wouldn't be able to get a handgun license, or various other freedoms might be taken away from you because you register as a person who needs medical cannabis. So I urge you, first of all, for a free and independent San Francisco, support the independent cannabis dealers around town. They're all over the place. I'm sure your friend knows one. You can get his phone number. So let's support that. And then at the same time, the city of San Francisco is the one that regulates, and it's the Department of Public Health that regulates the dispensaries. And that means we have a very obvious vector on which we can approach changing this rule and allowing anyone to consume, sell, purchase, grow, and otherwise utilize the cannabis plant. So that means it's not going to be focusing on some state legislature or federal legislation. It really needs to be about changing the city ordinances, which is probably not that hard. So if you want to help with changing these city ordinances, in my mind, the first step is going to be, let's determine which exact ordinances authorize or deauthorize various cannabis-related activity. We could either remove those ordinances altogether, or add explicit ordinances saying that anyone is allowed to grow and sell and purchase cannabis. Now, obviously, the federal and state police are not going to, or they might not enforce the San Francisco or obey the San Francisco ordinances, but the vast majority of police action here is SFPD, which can be regulated by the corporate city entity, the City of San Francisco Corporation, into not enforcing any federal cannabis laws. So I think we have a really good shot here, and this is probably something that a lot of people are down for. And so I was reading the San Francisco Examiner. This is one reason why I was prompted, but also a lot of people come to the freedom movement because they've experienced the drug war, and some of their friends have been imprisoned for drugs or fined heavily or attacked by the courts. Their life has been wasted, or at least several months of it, dealing with huge expenses, fees, fines, police, threats of guns. This is not something that we need. We don't need people threatening with guns others that are growing and selling plants. So apparently there was in the city of San Francisco. Now back to my San Francisco Examiner. I love picking this up, searching for some issues regarding liberty, and this big one: popular medical marijuana event kiboshed. So there was going to be, and I think there may have been in the past, a medical marijuana like food truck bazaar over in Soma next to this one big food truck area. And in the past they had actually sold edible cannabis treats to people at the event, and I think they were all required to have the license, the prescription for the cannabis. Oh, awesome. So for $20 you could chow down on cannabis infused pancake breakfast and all kinds of other fun stuff. So this was a pop-up event, and now the city is shutting down the event, saying that they had previously authorized, and they're saying that it can't be done in a pop-up area. You can't sell cannabis in a pop-up area. It has to be in a designated building. And what they're really saying here is that if you don't obey, you will be put in a cage. So they're using the threat of guns to stop peaceful organizers from selling pancakes. That have no known dangerous side effects. And so this is all about the city health inspector who oversees dispensaries. Now, does the city health inspector oversee nurseries where people grow and sell plants? Because that's all that's really going on here. And whoever this city health inspector is, we could find out who the city health inspector is, and we probably want to go talk to him and figure this out. So I'm going to quickly search the city health inspector just so I can link to this in the show notes. Okay, well, while I'm doing that, and if you want to have a chance, it is the topic cannabis. So we will be right back with more Free Talk SF. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to Free Talk SF. I am Steven Zeiler, and we were talking about medical cannabis, we were talking about free cannabis in San Francisco. So just to summarize, no one should be required to have a permit or a doctor's note, a prescription to use cannabis, to sell it, to grow it. The police should not be enforcing anti-cannabis laws here on Haight Street, and everyone shouldn't have to be afraid to be carrying around a plant and apprehensive that someone with a firearm might come and attack them. I am talking about the San Francisco police, of course. Okay, a big part of this show is empathy, and empathy for everyone in San Francisco. Something that I've been working on personally in my life a lot is thinking about how others feel and how they're going to react to various situations. And I told you about this woman over at a cafe nearby who I was trying to get to accept Bitcoin, and she ultimately admitted that she would accept silver coins. And so this was a really cool woman. She she seemed like she's really down to earth. She has a 5-year-old daughter. She's working a hard job at the cafe. And so I've been talking to her recently about, I told her about the show, and she was really into the idea of empathy. More so than freedom in it. She really liked freedom. But empathy really is striking a chord with people. Because and when I say empathy is the core theme of the show, like their heart slumps in a way, and then they always say something like that it's a fading element in society. And I think that's why so many people are cynical about social progress, political progress, because they see most others just not using much empathy when they're trying to craft their laws and regulations. And so for her, she has a 5-year-old daughter. Her daughter is entering into the public school system, and she is terrified out of her mind about the new California law requiring children to be vaccinated forcibly with all kinds of vaccinations against the parents' will. So she said that they're now setting up vaccination clinics in the schools. Vaccination clinics are being set up in the schools where the child, as young as elementary school age, apparently can now consent to the vaccination against the will of their parents. Now, in all other legal contexts, a child cannot consent to anything. But the idea that a parent doesn't own their child's body and that the state can force people to take medication is an assault on individual freedom. It's an assault on families. It's an assault on health, freedom, and choice of your own body. And so she's terrified. She's thinking she's going to have to move to the mountains, take her daughter. She said absolutely not. They're not going to vaccinate. She said that also imagine this, most of the teachers and the people who she has to deal with, like with other parents and other teachers, and some of them are vehemently opposed to anti-vaccinators. And they get mad, they get angry. And she said also most of them, almost all of them, have no children. So we're having a lot of people attempting to impose their will on others in society when they're not even taking a moment to put themselves in their shoes and empathize. Why would this person not want to have their child injected with dozens of chemicals, heavy metals, literally viruses and diseases? They're not even thinking about that from the parent's perspective. And that's happening all the time. And so with her, she's terrified of the vaccinations. She's under incredible taxation and regulation. And I really empathize with her, and she really did pick up on the empathy component. I think that is, it can be applied so much here, and we can use it to gain more freedom if we help people see the perspective of others that are being negatively affected by our actions. It's like here in the Mission, there's always this giant controversy over housing development in the Mission, and basically the city regulators have put a moratorium on building houses. So a lot of people, especially tech people, are getting upset about the moratorium on houses or non-affordable houses. Now, obviously the city government doesn't understand supply demand economics, but on the other hand, a lot of people aren't using their empathy to see like what is the effect that we're having on the community here. I mean, people like me who have moved in the last 5 years, the last 10 years to be part of this extreme tech miracle, and we're causing people who lived here, who grew up here, who have families, we're forcing them out of their homes. So we need to see the whole picture around this. It's not just should we allow people to build condos or should we restrict for affordable housing, but what is deep down, what are the fundamental causes of the problems of people not being able to afford their houses. I mean, if you look at property taxes on homes, you look at all kinds of sales taxes, restrictions, and then you look at inequality in the economy, where some people most of the people who make the least amount of money, they could make so much more money with a little bit of training and direction and incorporation into a certain company structure. But we're not even thinking about those people, and like rather than trying to pass a bunch of laws and have a big arguments, we should be looking at how to incorporate these people into our society. I mean, how to build up independent humans in San Francisco who, rather than like seeing them as competitors or something, seeing them as collaborators, contributors, peers. All kinds of people have incredible contribution to make and incredible stories. And I think we should be focusing on being inclusive and building a community around what the people have to offer and building up everyone rather than dividing and having class conflict, class warfare. It's really just awful. And the whole city council and them forcing people or preventing people from modifying their homes, preventing people from building new homes, and causing this big rift. It's so disuniting. It splits people up. It breaks up the city. Whenever I try to have a conversation with people, it always comes back to this: the unions versus these people. Let's just really feel for each other and come up with voluntary strategies for incorporating people from the lower strata of the income spectrum into our businesses. I mean, we have so many high-tech business people who have access to millions and millions of dollars, and they're always complaining about not being able to find talent. I understand that one of the problems here is probably minimum wage, just because people can't pay, some companies can't pay the minimum wage, but yeah, that's another issue altogether. I think the key is that we shouldn't be focusing on forced solutions, but on voluntary incorporation of other humans into our society, into our communities. So this is going to be a long effort. I appreciate you bearing with me, and hopefully some of these ideas turn into more actionable things that we can do in our lives. I know a lot of people who are talented, who are immigrants, and they live in the city. They're having a hard time. Some people that work at corner stores, are the things, and they could easily be integrated into the information economy, into the tech economy, where they have it frees them to contribute more on a mental level, on an information level, and on such a more global scale, rather than working at a corner store or the ice cream shop. There's a lot of people who really want to do well, and they have ambition, but the cards are stacked against them. So we should look at building companies that hire poor people and give them opportunity for independence, and not just hire them to use them and exploit their labor, but actually to build independence, because that will make our city better. Well, thank you. We can be much more independent and much more free if we empathize with our neighbors and the people who are less fortunate. I appreciate you listening to this show, and as always, dance like no one's watching. La la la, dance, dance. There's no good revolution without dancing. And of course, join me on Sunday for Lindy Hop in the park. The lesson last week was great. Encrypt like everyone's watching. If you need help encrypting, if you need help setting up GPG, SSL, anything like that, send an email to showtips@freetalksf.com. And please share this show on your social media if you enjoy it and you'd like to support. And until next time, be free, be independent, and empathize with everyone around you. For a free San Francisco, I'm Steven Zeiler, signing off.